in the middle of the week. I feel like the week is moving, it's motoring on along with the devastation that continues to go on in our country and around the world. But I'm glad you guys are here to join me. I saw a few of you guys talking in the chat just before I jumped in. And I always have to let you make sure you guys know that I'm here and we're ready to go. Again, I'll repeat for folks maybe couldn't catch up yesterday. We are on a little bit of new software, new system, trying to iron out some of the kinks and the little staticky nature of the videos and versus me talking and all that stuff. So as things happen, could you guys please continue to give me some feedback so I can continue to tweak this and twerk it and do all the right things to make sure it's all smooth and clean as possible for all of you folks who showed up on time, nerds. But what's up, Cyborg Dragon? Luke H. Cyborg Dragon. You're playing hooky today, I see. Yeah, I've already scoured these messages, you guys. I know what you're up to. Glad you guys are here as well. Bubba Franks, the Sword Dragon. The dragons are out today. I like it. Didn't realize that we do a full hour before we go into the damage report. Yes, and as other folks to point out, even on Mondays. Not sure if you guys noticed this, but on Monday, 2 days ago, I was sometimes we go over even. And there's, who knows? There may be a day when I just ended after 45 minutes to 50 minutes. Who knows? It's the good thing about this is it's a little looser. That's why you see me have to refer to some of the videos and click and switch myself. So I'm glad you guys are on board for that stuff. But earlier this week on Monday, just before I was going into TDR, which goes right into it, uh, I had the possibility where if it was any other normal day, I would have gone over by like 10 minutes. And I almost forgot that I was going on TDR. Don't tell John. But I looked up and I was like, oh, shoot. It's like 2 minutes until 1 o'clock Eastern. And I had to hurry up and jump off and then scramble and switch around and flip and end up on John's show. Anyways, one flew over is over from Greece. Yeah, we're worldwide, babes. We're going to make all this happen. Glad you guys are here. Let's go ahead and get started since I'm on time today, uh, somewhat. And we've got tons happening as usual with Donald Trump. And I know what you guys are thinking, just like previous days, it must be about Epstein. No. I mean, kind of it is. It's his constant attacks on Barack Obama, empty attacks, which are obviously a distraction. And since no one's buying it as anything valid outside of his MAGA sycophants, it's not really working. I want to show you guys how flailing this guy has been and how upset he is over the attention that he brought to this situation that he now wants to all go away. Let's watch this.
Remember this, Obama cheated on the election. And we have it cold, hard, blue, and it's getting even more so because the stuff that's coming in is not even believable. So, and you should mention that every time they give you a question that's not appropriate, just say, oh, by the way, Obama cheated on the election. You'll watch the camera turn off instantly.
He didn't even want to talk about Epstein by name there, but he definitely wanted people to know anytime something inappropriate comes up, I want you guys to bring up Obama because then it'll all shut down. I feel like he doesn't understand how to lie his way out of this enough. So he's just gone direct to, I'm going to tell people what to do. I want you guys to stop talking about Epstein. I'm sick of you doing this. As a matter of fact, here's a distraction. I'm not even kidding. I bet at one point he's going to say, here's a distraction from what you guys keep talking about. He telegraphs everything he does. That's why it's so maddening. This guy isn't even a good con man. He's not a good liar, but people are conned and believe his lies. I still don't understand how it works. But still, here's more of his ranting and raving over how much Obama broke the law. We don't have to get too deep into the details, which we will a little bit. But the main thing to see here is that he's continuing to try to distract. And Obama's a big name to do it with.
We're doing a real job, but what we found out is so horrible that Obama and a group of thugs cheated on the elections. They cheated violently, viciously on the elections. They're violent people. They're vicious, horrible. These are vicious, horrible people. And we can't let this happen. SB, we're doing a real job, but
yeah, this is really desperate. They're vicious, horribly vicious, bloodthirsty, violent people. Again, this is based off of his lies about the former president Barack Obama, and the way that the intelligence agencies also discovered and pointed out how Russia was interfering with the elections, which at the time, again, we'll get to. He had to go back and forth and scramble on as he was trying to deny all those things. But it's violent and it's vicious. You know, that black guy that was in office, he's like, like a thug or something. Again, he still thinks that this type of way of thinking is going to fool enough people because, I mean, it did for a long enough time. Here's more of his ranting and raving. Check this out.
It wasn't lots of people all over the place. It was them too. But the leader of the gang was President Obama, Barack Hussein Obama. Have you heard of him? And except for the fact that he gets shielded by the press for his entire life, that's the one they look. He's guilty. It's not a question. I like to say, let's give it time. It's there. He's guilty. This was treason. This was every word you can think of. They tried to steal the election. They tried to obfuscate the election. They did things that nobody's ever even imagined, even in other countries. You've seen some pretty rough countries. This man has seen some pretty rough countries, but you've never seen anything like that. And we have all of the documents. And from what Tulsi told me, she's got thousands of additional documents coming. So President Obama, it was his concept, his idea, but he also got it from crooked Hillary Clinton. Crooked is a $3 bill.
Is there anyone else he can bring up? Bill Clinton. I think maybe he can bring up Biden. Maybe he can bring up Kamala Harris. It doesn't matter. It's just crooked. I mean, he was also in coordination with anybody else that I can think of off the top of my head right now. But don't forget, that black president was a thug. He was a thug that led this whole investigation into Donald Trump, which was discovered to have been accurate, that Russia was interfering with the election because they preferred this guy being in office. And if you wonder why Russia would prefer this guy being in office, just to take a look at the things that Russia's been doing ever since this guy's been back in office and what he's done in response. I can't believe Putin is so mean, and then moves right back along, allowing Putin to do whatever the hell that he wants. So again, this is a constant flailing and swinging and trying to make sure that people think that up is down and left is right. Matter of fact, he even brought up Tulsi Gabbard because, he had her bring this case up to the DOJ, which of course is all in his pocket. That's why as he nominated all these folks and they went through the confirmation process, and none of them said that they would have any kind of independence from the president, and even was asked specific questions about what they would do. It was all dodgy questions, but for some reason, enough Democrats voted along with folks to confirm these people. And even after that, we're seeing the results of exactly how this works. So again, more of the thug talk, more of this one guy was doing this with the other folks that you're supposed to be afraid of. God, this is elementary school stuff. And so he dispatched someone else that's hoping to help cover up the Epstein thing, who was really on board to try and get the Epstein files released beforehand. But now that she's been given her marching orders, Marsha Blackburn from Tennessee has to try and carry this whole lie with her as well, or else she'll get booted from the cult.
They kept saying you couldn't make up things like they were saying the conspiracy theory was. But now we know. When it comes to the FBI and what they did around the Clinton dossier and how they worked together to concoct this story, well, it turns out that good old common sense and intuition might have been right on this one. And then you look at all the documents that are coming out about Russia collusion and Hillary Clinton, and thank goodness DNI Gabbard has made all of this public. We know that DOJ, FBI are going to conduct their investigation, and then Congress will have the opportunity to act. But we need to make certain that people who weaponized the government against a political opponent and a private citizen, that they are held to account to the fullest extent of the law.
This is what lawless people do. as they've taken over what they think is the law. They'll just say anybody that doesn't agree with me or anyone that I need some kind of political retribution on is against the law, is violating the law, because now the law is just me. In fact, it's always kind of been that way. We've seen how laws have to change over the years. So when we're sitting right in the middle of a bunch of fascists that continue to talk about how they're manipulating the law to fit their political narratives to avoid other accountabilities that would be pretty much illegal, as they're changing all this to then avoid having any kind of release of these files that potentially have this guy's name all over it because he was his best friend, and we keep seeing stories leaked out about the way they hung out and talked, the way that he talked about little girls. Let's keep it real. This is a complete distraction, and Marsha Blackburn is still on the side of that. Go check out some of the things Marsha Blackburn said before about what she once done with the Epstein files when she was still following behind Donald Trump and him telling her everything that she's supposed to do in order to protect his ass. They're protectors of elite pedophiles. Let's keep it real. I mean, and best case scenario for this guy, particularly since that's all he's talking about, best case scenario for him is he's just protecting other rich, elitist pedophiles that were all a part of this whole scheme. Because there's a lot of people on it, and there's folks that they don't want revealed. And we can speculate, just like Marsha Blackburn said. We can deduce and come down to this one. Common sense and intuition, she said, is right on what she was talking about. For some reason, common sense and intuition doesn't work at all for the guy who said and promised and vowed and said the files are on their desk and they're waiting to be released. And then after they have the opportunity to release it, they want nothing to do with it. What would common sense and intuition tell you about those guys? They tell you that while they're still trying to push this lie, and they bring up Tulsi Gabbard, referring this case to the Department of Justice, they won't tell you that back in 2018, when she was on Joe Rogan's podcast, that when she was talking about the same very subject that she referred the thug, President Obama, on to the Department of Justice, that she was on the same side as those thugs.
I think when you're talking about and there's so many, I don't know, I'm kind of going in a few different directions here with these social media giants, how they're being misused to further certain agendas in different ways. But when you're talking about like these Russian troll farms that you mentioned, what is missing from all of the news coverage around this and all of the outrage about how this foreign country is trying to influence our elections, which is wrong and which the American people need to be aware of where this information is coming from, is the fact that and you're saying, why does somebody do that? Well, because this country does want to influence who we're electing, right?
Yes.
Like, oh, we'd rather work with this person. We know that person is not going to be nice to us. The United States has been doing this for a very long time.
Sure.
In countries around the world, both overtly and covertly, through these kinds of disinformation campaigns, not even counting like the outright regime change wars, we're going to physically take you out. And I think it is very hypocritical for us to be discussing this issue as a country without actually being honest about how this goes both ways. So yes, we need to stop these other foreign countries, and Russia's not the only one, there are others, from trying to influence the American people in our elections. We also need to stop doing the same thing in other countries.
Yeah, without doubt. But there's also,
Just want to make sure you guys see that she was also on Joe Rogan's show again back in 2018, talking about how not only is Russia been a part of trying to influence our elections, it's such a normal thing. Also, the United States has been doing it covertly or openly in multiple countries for years. That's Tulsi Gabbard. She went on to also say it's hypocritical for us to even discuss about how other countries want to do it because we do it so much, and maybe we should pause and stop with that whole policy of manipulating and trying to change elections to fit our narratives and our ways and our political beliefs best way possible. So we have to stop Russia from trying to influence our people and our elections. What did she now see to make her want to change her mind on all that? What makes her now then talk about this whole investigation from the intelligence community at the time to point out accurately what it was that was going on? It's almost like this whole thing is empty and it means absolutely nothing. It has more to do with trying to cover Donald Trump's ass. Man, this must be some disgusting things that he had that he's trying to hide, or his best friends did that he's trying to hide. It's disgusting. So again, we're going to get to the point where if there's any aspect of you defending these guys, any of them that's trying to pull these very thin, empty distractions, all you're going to look like is a defender of people that preyed upon young girls actively, systematically, and with money. I'm just going to point it out. You can keep fighting that fight, but you're going to be on some kind of list in a second. So, so in response to this, people were wondering why Obama hasn't been saying much specifically about this presidency, about the fascism that's taking hold in the country, and now specifically about him. It's been brought up about him, and he brought this statement forward. At least this is through his through a spokesperson for former President Obama. Here, check this out. Here's that statement. Out of respect for the office of the presidency, our office does not normally dignify the constant nonsense and misinformation. Let me give you full screen. Let me start over. Out of respect for the office of the presidency, our office does not normally dignify the constant nonsense and misinformation flowing out of this White House with a response. But these claims are outrageous enough to merit one. These bizarre allegations are ridiculous and a weak attempt at distraction. Won't say what from. Nothing in the document issued last week undercuts the widely accepted conclusion that Russia worked to influence the 2016 presidential election, but did not successfully manipulate any votes. These findings were affirmed in a 2020 report by the bipartisan Senate Intelligence Committee, and get this, led by then Chairman Marco Rubio. They slipped that little part in about Marco Rubio because obviously Marco Rubio is Secretary of State, and he's going along with anything that Donald Trump says and wants done. In fact, when Marco Rubio was asked why all of his beliefs that he had before, because he did run against Donald Trump, had a couple of like memorable fights and debates with Donald Trump, had some memorable shots that he took at Donald Trump just campaigning. He was getting under Donald Trump's skin because he had a lot of things about Donald Trump that were very accurate. But now that he's working for Donald Trump, he goes, I don't have a mind. I don't have a mindset. I don't have an approach. I don't have anybody I'm supposed to represent except for Donald Trump, no matter how much he's destroying the country. That's what Marco Rubio said lately as he's now working for Donald Trump. But before that, when he had the freedom to be honest, this is what Marco Rubio said about this issue.
Cyber tools were used as a means to an end. It isn't necessarily what we should be focused on here. What we're talking about here is active measures. The active measures taken by the government of Vladimir Putin to influence and to potentially manipulate American public opinion for the purpose of discrediting individual political figures, sowing chaos and division in our politics, sowing doubts about the legitimacy of our elections. So if you look at the situation we now face, here's the aftermath. We had an election where, after some intrusions into some state databases, there was a one nominee for president warning about fraud in the election. Then after the election, we have some on the other side questioning the legitimacy of the president-elect because of Russian interference. And we have the president-elect questioning the credibility of the intelligence community because of its findings. This sounds like a pretty effective and successful effort to sow chaos, to undermine credibility of our leaders and of our government institutions. In essence, it sounds like they achieved what they wanted, to get us to fight against each other over whether our elections were legitimate and divide us in the way that sows the sort of chaos that they sought to achieve.
You're in this constant loop of looking for where these hoaxes are that Donald Trump keeps talking about. So when he talks about the Russia hoax, and he's got people that work for him at the time talking about the confirming the nature and the validity of this hoax, where it was determined that they were doing these things. Matter of fact, I'm not sure how Marco Rubio can talk about how they were successful in making sure that there's chaos and misinformation and a lack of confidence in our election systems. I'm not sure how they could be successful in that if it never happened. Because, you know, right now, this guy who's in this administration is saying that it never happened because the guy who's leading this administration was the one that they were targeting to make sure he benefited from those interferences in our election. It's almost like they were working together or something. But still, at the same time, you can always just release your belief systems and your principles all you want, as long as you're a member of the Republican Party. There's one more guy, though, This is again also from 2018, after he had to be embarrassed in front of enough people to admit this. This is the at then President of the United States who's back again now.
Let me be totally clear in saying that, and I've said this many times, I accept our intelligence community's conclusion that Russia's meddling in the 2016 election took place. Could be other people also. There's a lot of people out there. Let me be.
I do get that that's a forced statement. So that's been spreading around. But the thing is this is probably after the Helsinki thing when he bowed down to Vladimir Putin and said, look, my intelligence agencies tell me all this information, but you know what? He told me very strongly this morning when he shook my hand and looked me in my eye and threatened me. When he did all that, I was like, yeah, I mean, he said it very strongly. So therefore, I'm going to deny the intelligence of my own country's intelligence agencies and go with the guy who they said was doing this. So yes, I do get that that was a statement that he felt he had to, as you see, he was reading it. It was nothing that he actually felt. And he even gave that little caveat at the back end. It could be a lot of people. This guy's so afraid of so many people and has been bought out, manipulated, and used up all across the world so much he doesn't have any principles or any representation for people here at all. Think about how much he represents Benjamin Netanyahu and Vladimir Putin on a daily basis. Is even putting in more tariffs over Bolsonaro in Brazil because he's facing charges for the way he tried to manipulate his government's whole process after he lost an election. This guy works for so many other people besides the folks that voted for him. It's outrageous. And he keeps showing you every day. Again, how are y'all's paychecks doing? How are those prices of goods going? How's all that going right now as we're still trying to deflect from this information that he could just hand out and move on and go back to making America great again? But instead, his Speaker of the House, his puppet Mike Johnson, is getting out of Congress early for their August-long recess in a week to make sure they don't do anything else about this. Last one. Speaking of Donald Trump's sycophants, even this guy couldn't fully admit to another piece of trash on Fox News about what it is that's going to happen from these accusations into President Obama back in the day. Here's Lindsey Graham. Watch this.
Now, if you show these documents to a D.C. grand jury, and we know all about D.C. grand juries, what do you think the chances are of an indictment coming for Brennan, Comey, Barack Obama, or any of these guys?
Probably like me being in the NBA. And but the point is, it's not what the grand jury will do, is should you pursue it?
Right.
And so here's what I would say. Yes, please do pursue it, because the documents that Gabbard released show that Obama basically ordered his people to go look again and get a different result. And this begins to explain how crooked the Mueller investigation was, because the same people that he was talking to do another intelligence assessment are the same people that cooked up the warrant stuff, the Clinton campaign.
Yep.
So we need to look at this. This is a big deal.
It's a nasty web. I hope we stay on it. And Senator Lindsey Graham, you should never play for the NBA or the WNBA.
I don't see
or
it in my
any high
picture.
school basketball team at all. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Lindsey Graham just said that the chances of this ending in any kind of actual indictments are the same chance as him making it and playing in the NBA. But at the same time, what's more important is that they do it anyway for political purposes. That's how they operate. Like, they keep telling you exactly who they are and what it is that they're doing. This is not going to work. It has nothing to do with anything. The guy who drops to a knee so fast to kiss Donald Trump's ass, this guy said immediately, it's not going to come to anything, but we should do it anyway. I want to refer you guys back to these guys talking about how they don't want to waste taxpayer dollars on things, but they'll definitely waste taxpayer dollars on pursuing this to try and cover for Donald Trump, to try and make him look better in the middle of all the messes that he continues to create. But you know what? The good news is that he continues the good news as far as not being fooled by any of this is that he continues to create so much bad news for himself that he has to continue to try and gaslight folks into believing what they're seeing is not really what's happening. There's another story I'm about to get to in a second that has everything to do with that. But I didn't give enough of my shout outs. Abby Normal, how you doing? Who else did I miss? You guys, all you guys regulars that are always in the house. I thought I saw someone reaching out. More dragons around here. Good to see you guys. There's a lot happening. If you guys pop back up, I'll make sure I say hi. How's that economy going? Whoa, something just started again. So how's that economy going under Donald Trump? How are those trade deals going that continue are supposed to roll down from day to day to day? Let's go find out how they're working.
General Motors shares T-boned by tariffs. The stock is diving several percentage points here, 7+% after the auto giant reported a 32% slump in quarterly profits due to a $1.1 billion hit from the tariffs, which GM says will actually worsen in the current quarter.
GM, an American car company that Donald Trump said he's going to help make sure he bolsters and bring into this golden age and bring in tons of revenue. They'll get to sell all across the world. Look at how much money is going to come in. Consumer prices are going to be great. So many jobs are going to be made, and it's going to happen immediately. Like he says, everything else was supposed to happen. But damn it, it's weird. Now they have this 1.1, what is it, billion-dollar loss? Actually, let's get a little more information about that, just in case you guys didn't fully get the information. This is what's going on with GM due to Donald Trump's tariffs. And I'm not sure how much more he can continue to pass this off as anything but what it exactly is. Watch this.
This is a big week for corporations to report their earnings. Today, General Motors said tariffs are hurting its bottom line. CBS News Money Watch correspondent Kelly O'Grady is here to help us understand what is going on. So, Kelly, how bad did GM say this is?
So, look, tariffs are taking a bite. Remember, we had that 25% tariff on imported autos and car parts take effect early April. So, GM, they reported earnings, and they said they're looking at a $1.1 billion impact in the second quarter from tariffs, and that could expand to $4 to $5 billion if they're looking at the full year. Now, they also did say that they're taking steps to mitigate that risk by bringing manufacturing more into the U.S., but that takes time and money.
As we try to assess the effect of tariffs here, GM is by no means the only car company taking a hit.
It's definitely not. Stellantis is as well. So they also shared they're expecting a $350 million roughly impact during the first 6 months. They also shared that shipments to North America were down 25% in the second quarter versus the year before, right? Those cars are more expensive when you bring them into the country. That's why that is down. We're also looking at earnings season. Other companies are reporting how they're doing. Most are weathering it well, but I'm looking towards the retailers.
A lot of numbers, a lot of data. What if you're trying to buy a car in the near term?
Prices could go up. That is what we're hearing from dealerships, but make sure you go to your car dealership and ask if there are any price discounts. They're trying to make sure you're getting in the door.
Work a deal. All right. Kelly O'Grady, thank you so much.
So GM is having to deal with all these different issues with these tariffs being put in place. $1.1 billion losses in one quarter, and they're expecting $4 to $5 billion if this continues, which August is right around the corner. And that's when this next phase of hundreds of deals coming in place versus more pushback from Taco Don. Or just these letters being put into place, which we'll get to in a second. These letters of tariff levels to all these other countries being slapped on them with no negotiations from the great negotiator at all, because he couldn't negotiate. As those then come to put into place, this is going to explode even further. But they keep talking about how the expectations are supposed to be so great. Here's details of what GM is going through. Let me give you guys these points of view, because again, they may tell you one thing, like, consumers don't pay for tariffs, just like they'll tell you that these companies won't be making sure their bottom line stays the same. It's actually based on this capitalistic society, absolutely their responsibility. They have to screw us over to make more money. Watch. CFRA research analyst Garrick Nelson wrote in a Tuesday morning note that one of the reasons shares dropped with GM was because investors were disappointed that the automaker did not raise guidance. Beyond tariffs, GM's underlying business in the quarter was solid, actually. Sales in the U.S. market, which is its main source of profit, rose by 7%, while the company continued to command strong pricing on its pickup trucks and SUVs. GM swung back into a small profit also with China after losing money over there a year earlier. So this is happening. The whole point of that is the 7% raise in revenue from sales here. That was a raise in revenue, but they still lost 1.1 billion because of the cost of these tariffs. That where do you think that's going to eventually go to? Because as that reporter was talking about there from, I believe, CBS, was that they're trying to find different incentives to try and keep people around because folks are going to stop buying cars, especially when an SUV jumps up by $5,000 to $10,000 in cost. Just going to point that out a little bit more. So these analysts said GM may need to cut investment in future projects or find other ways to trim spending to offset the effect of tariffs. The automakers so far keeping pricing consistent and absorbing added tariff costs rather than passing them down to consumers. So right now, that's why they took that $1.1 billion hit. They're trying to absorb these so that Donald Trump won't tweet out and say, how dare GM doesn't try and make me look good from the way that I've raised prices on everything in their operations, and they can't take that hit. Same thing he did with I think Amazon, Walmart, when they point out that they're going to be raising prices as well. He's going to come after them and say, you have to protect me in my really bad policies that are screwing over the American people. So that 1.1 billion the hit that they took, they're going to change that up because these analysts said as that stock drops, GM doesn't want their stock to drop. So they're going to pass those on. And they use the terms, they need to cut investment in future projects. Would that be all that manufacturing that they're saying is going to be flooding back to the United States? Maybe it'd be all those jobs that they were saying is going to be so many more people going to be opened up to in the United States. They got to cut something. And what they'll cut are those types of things, because they're definitely not going to cut into their wallets. That's not how big time capitalists in this country work. One more piece of this that just really shows you the tea leaves of this. So again, as I point out, that GM stock dropped 6% after it revealed these earnings. That signaled Wall Street's displeasure with the company's strategy so far of absorbing tariffs as a hit to their profits. Quote, to put full year targets in reach, this analyst Daniel Rosca and Christopher Gray of research and brokerage firm Bernstein wrote this note saying GM needs to start mitigating their tariff cost. Just saying. It's right there in front of us. This is reasons why when people say, why are you not rooting for America? How can you say that these are going to destroy the country? Why are you going to say prices are going up? Why would you be so negative? It's not about me negative. And I'm no economist. I just read stuff. So the degree of knowing this stuff is just reading people who know more about it and then taking that in and understanding that 2 + 2 still equals 4. And if we're getting these costs passed on to us, as we're seeing right in front of our faces, despite him talking about gas prices being at $1.98 when they're actually 60 to 70 cents higher, at least in my area, then I feel like you should be able to take your own reality over the things that the guy who's putting all of that negative pressure and influencing your life this way, just telling you what your reality should be. Here's that guy. And this is his big announcement still in connection with all this. I think he just said this yesterday. This is what he, I guess, truthed out. We just completed a massive deal with Japan, perhaps the largest deal ever made. Japan will invest, at my direction, $550 billion into the United States, which will receive 90% of the profits. This deal will create hundreds of thousands of jobs. There's never been anything like it. Perhaps most importantly, Japan will open their country to trade, including cars and trucks, rice, and certain other agricultural products, and other things. Japan will pay reciprocal tariffs to the United States of 15%. This is where it all hits the road. This is a very exciting time for the United States of America, and especially for the fact that we will continue to always have a great relationship with the country of Japan. Thank you for your attention to this matter. So his deal he's made with Japan is to get their tariffs down to 15%, when previous to his ass coming into office, I think it was 2.5 or something like that I saw. Because as he came in and slapped 25% rates on Japan, because, they're so unfair to us, he brought it down to 15%. So that gets those markets open and things moving. But what about that 15%? That 13 about percent raise in tariffs that are coming in that they keep telling you is getting paid by the companies, which we just mentioned. One of those companies in GM is getting pressure to stop taking in and absorbing those higher costs. They're going to go down to consumers. That's how these things work. And for as long as they can hold off on it, they will, because they don't know how long he's going to delay, how long he's going to fold or capitulate. But at this point, people don't know, and they're not going to do anything about it either, except wait and see. And now this whole deal with Japan that he's announcing is a big victory isn't that good for these American companies either. I'm going to show you why. So this is from CNBC. A group that's representing General Motors and Ford and Chrysler, their parent company Stellantis, on Tuesday raised concerns about a trade deal that could cut tariffs on auto imports from Japan to 15% that we just talked about, while leaving tariffs on imports from Canada and Mexico at 25% because he's still mad at them and blaming them, claiming that there's some fentanyl issues from both countries. So Matt Blunt, who heads the American Automotive Policy Council that represents the Detroit 3 automakers, said that they were still reviewing the agreement. But, quote, any deal that changes a lower tariff for Japanese imports with virtually no U.S. content than the tariff imposed on North American-built vehicles with high U.S. content is a bad deal for the U.S. industry and U.S. auto workers. So clear enough, if you're punishing Canada and Mexico to higher rates than you're punishing Japanese companies that are sending in their products that, again, are getting tariffed and we're still paying for, the American companies that use damn near all of their parts from those more neighboring countries, they're going to pay even more. And when I say they're going to pay even more, I'm saying you're going to pay even more. That is, if you're going to buy, GM, Ford, or Chrysler products, which, as we always push in this country, buy American until the price goes extremely high. And by the way, that doesn't mean just them. Of course, other products will, as well as they're brought in. Here's an analysis from one of these money guys. His name is Spencer Hakamian. I screw up people's names so much. But this is something that kind of indicates the way this is going for Toyota, which is a Japanese car company. He said Toyota is up 8% on the news of this 50% tariff. That seems weird. He says it's simple. Ford, GM, Tesla, and all the other American manufacturers are going to be paying 50% more for their steel, 50% more for their copper, 25% more for their Canadian production, 25% more for their Mexican production, and 55% on their Chinese production. Toyota only has to pay this 15% more, and they're done with all of the rest of the nonsense. Ford has to pay much more than that. A lot more, he says. We've given a Japanese car company an advantage over American car companies, all in hopes of bringing back auto jobs to America. And by the way, don't forget, if they bring those auto jobs back to America, if this actually worked in the way that this cartoonish administration said it was supposed to work, how long do you think it takes to change the entire process for where and how they build cars, in which countries they do it, in which parts of this country they would do it in, as this golden age is supposed to come in, while at the same time, the tariffs on all the things that we buy that are already being created in normal trade processes is higher? How soon is that going to happen? Because those questions were asked. They asked these folks directly. So are you going to, what's the pace in which you think, because this is supposed to take years and years in order to change the whole process here and have these different plants here that they do in other places? It should all be instant, so fast, just like how fast he ended the Russia-Ukraine war, and it'll make your head spin how fast he does everything in this country. Except none of it ever happens that way. It was supposed to happen like within the first week, that everyone just kowtowed to all of his tariffs and everything went the way that he wanted to then. That was April 2nd. Bro, it's about to be August. So every time the shit is about to hit the fan, the guy either delays or he folds, or he tries to find other ways to make sure that nothing stays concrete, but that makes everyone, these companies specifically, not really understand what's going to happen next. There's way too much uncertainty, but he's barking up Jerome Powell's tree. Come on, man. I want to show you one of these guys and how they're addressing this whole situation. Again, I think I laid out pretty clearly the way that these tariffs, the way they've affected these companies, and the way that they'll eventually affect consumers. But Scott Bessent just can't get off of the same old talking points because the guy that's telling him to do it, he's stupid.
I do know that the tariffs, the cost of tariffs on automobiles, which will begin, I don't know, August 1st or whatever, will be paid by people like me, the consumer. The question is, does the president realize the consumer pays the tariffs?
Well, I'm going to have to disagree with that. Is who pays the tariffs is a choice. And what we've seen thus far is that the manufacturers are eating a substantial portion of the tariffs and taking it into their profit margins. So you might see, for instance, Toyota hasn't raised prices, and they may choose to go for market share rather than raising prices.
Are you, it's been.
I do know.
Scott Bessent said it's a choice. Before it was the companies will eat the tariffs. That choice for companies that are looking to make more billions of dollars, that choice would be either they take those hits or they pass it on down, or they don't incentivize in other ways, or they don't invest in all these ways that these guys keep saying that they will. He's admitting it. He's saying it right in front of you. Maybe they'll find other ways to not take these hits. All of this is negative things. You understand that, right? All these things that they're talking about. Well, they should take the negativity of these policies. They're not talking about the fact that there's negativity in all of these policies. They should take it. I'm not sure why we have to take it, but they're going to eventually take it because the pressure is on them to not lose money. That's, capitalism. Especially when it's a huge company that makes that lost 1.1 billion in one quarter. But Scott Bessent will keep telling you lies because, he can't reveal the true sources of things. But he did say something else. He said those companies, as I pointed out, will make a choice. One of those companies is Amazon. I want to show you the choices that they're making.
Here we are 6 months into the second Trump administration, 5 months since he started to impose tariffs. Take a look here on the wall at what Amazon is doing, okay? Amazon price is spiking. The price of low-cost items on Amazon from the 20th of January to the 1st of July, those prices have gone up here. As we see, as a matter of fact, right here in the corner, you can see it, the gain is 5.2%. Again, low-cost items. Amazon is sneaking in some price hikes. Now, why is that interesting? Well, Walmart's actually doing the opposite with low-cost goods across major companies of Target, Walmart, and Amazon. So Walmart here has actually come down with some of its low-cost goods. We see Target and Amazon have been going up. So they're kind of trying to sneak in. We're wondering if tariffs are passed along and that kind of thing. Expensive goods, by the way, have actually not been up as much. You start there February, March, and April, you see coming down and kind of leveling out, if anything, from all three. But to go back to the beginning, kind of interesting there what Amazon is doing.
Is it interesting what Amazon is doing, or is it expected? Amazon's the same company that was going to start putting up on their price increases on their site the reasons why things jumped up. It shows the percentage of maybe the price increase, and it says due to tariffs, and Donald Trump lost his mind. How dare you be transparent about prices? How dare you tell your consumers why they're paying a higher price and that it's my fault? They said this openly. This wasn't some behind the closed door meeting where he's talking to Amazon and we had to get some leaker to tell us about it. This guy like damn near had a press conference to talk about how he's lambasting Amazon for raising prices because, of course, that company wants to continue to make billions and billions of dollars. Of course they do. So as they move those prices along to you, they don't have to hide it. But I mean, it's kind of apparent right in front of us. Now, those are specifically about everyday items. And that's why he compared it to Walmart, which don't get confused on that. Walmart's prices are going up as well. There's just certain everyday items that they've lowered it on so that you can see it and go, wow, they're actually looking out for me. This is all the gamesmanship of trying to have this competition in this new tariff-ridden environment of our economy that we're working through. So these companies are trying to be nimble in it because no matter what, don't forget, everything got higher. So even when he says, oh, we're down to 15% with Japan, bro, you jumped up to 25%. Arbitrarily, just because you said so. So down to 15% is not down, it's up still from the previous tariff rates that we were dealing with. But I'm not sure if people notice that. There's other things. We're talking about these everyday items. I wanted to talk about this yesterday But this fits so well today too. I brought it right back. Just this quick little information from how these prices are going with coffee. Republicans against Trump pointed this out. Roasted coffee prices jumped 12.7% in June versus a year ago, while instant coffee rose 16.3%. This is for BLS data. So now Trump's insane 50% tariffs on Brazil, the top coffee supplier to the US, they'll take effect at the beginning of August too. That's that whole thing about Bolsonaro. So hold on. So because of his, addiction to his buddy Bolsonaro, those prices will go up even more too. But you notice, you got to listen close to these guys. Scott Bessent said, right now, it's being taken care of right now, and then maybe something else will happen later. Last little clip here from Scott Bessent. Listen closely, because what you'll hear from people, and I've been hearing it for maybe a month now, is look at all the tariff revenue that the country is bringing in. Every time you hear this, the reasons why they want to detach you from realizing that we're paying for the tariffs is because this, the way normal life works is if there's money coming in from tariffs and the American consumers are paying those tariffs, that money that's coming in is coming out of your wallet. So listen to the numbers that Scott Bessent wants to talk about and how successful this has been, and understand every one of those numbers that he's pointing out is not coming from out of the country. It's coming from the higher prices that we're all paying. There's a reason behind it. And that reason is they need even more money in these coffers to pay for these rich elitist tax cuts that they just passed in that stupid ass bill that's giving the rich people even more of our money. They need to find multiple different ways, which included all the cuts to all of our programs and to our health care and to veteran services and suicide hotlines and USAID, all those things they went and cut, all that's supposed to go back to them, those rich people who were standing at Donald Trump's inauguration, billionaires that invited themselves there by giving him $1 million because he's cheap, to give him $1 million to be there to make more money. And this is one of those ways that they're doing it. This is what the tariff policy does. Please pay attention.
Secretary, how much revenue have you raised so far from tariffs? I know that we saw a budget surplus in the Treasury in the month of June. Last time we saw a budget surplus was President Trump's first term. Is that largely because of the tariff revenue, and how much have you raised so far this year?
Well, we're closing in on $100 billion. I think we could annualize at $300 billion. So a way to think about that is that's roughly 1% of our U.S. 30 trillion GDP. So, that is a big number, Maria, and we didn't get any credit for that in the CBO scoring. I don't agree with the CBO scoring, but CBO scoring did say that there's a chance over the 10-year window we could take in $2.8 trillion of tariff revenue. And the great thing about the June number was not only was it an increase in tariff revenue, we brought down expenses. So it was a great combination: lower expenses, higher revenues. And that's how we are going to get this budget mess that we were left with under control.
Every one of those numbers, the trillions and the multiple billions that they're talking about that they don't get enough credit for, is the money that they're taking from you. They just put it in other terms that aren't even hidden. You just have to know what they're saying. And like I said, I'm no economist. I just read every once in a while about what these things are and how these things work. One of those areas that we've decided to cut from that are going to go to rich people's pockets that don't contribute at all to our society is through USAID, and also ways that we've given money overseas to facilitate things like countries that we've destroyed with wars and disrupted through any kinds of disruptions in their governments. CNN went to Afghanistan to show us directly some of the effects of these cuts to hospitals where pregnant women are giving birth, to where people are starving to death. And this is the effect of it. This is a depressing part of today's show, you guys, because this is what we're doing in the world.
The clinic we're actually heading towards was, until just a few months ago, funded by the US government. Now that Trump administration has pulled the funding, a lot of people in this area are left with not even basic healthcare facilities.
The UN estimates that an Afghan woman dies every 2 hours from pregnancy or childbirth. This clinic has now closed.
So this is where women were giving birth?
Yes, this is the only clinic in this area, and now it's gone.
Afghanistan has one of the highest maternal mortality rates in the world, right? What happens to these women now that the delivery room is gone?
It means that these communities don't have access. It means that women are going to be giving birth at home, meaning more and more children are going to die during childbirth.
We were just talking to the community leaders who were telling us that 7 people have died since this clinic closed. And just a couple of days ago, a woman died in childbirth because there was nowhere for her to give birth.
The woman's neighbors and family told us that if the clinic had still been open and she'd had the support of a midwife, she would have survived. Across Afghanistan, over 400 clinics have closed because of US aid cuts. Millions of people were reliant on these clinics for healthcare. Now, their only option is to travel hours, sometimes days, to public hospitals like this, where there's an influx of new patients. The US was funding doctors, nurses, and essential drugs here, but now that's also gone.
Salam, how are you?
This have the capacity for just 1 baby, and we have under about 3 babies here.
Yeah, it's crowded.
Yeah, crowded, yeah.
Is this normal?
No, not normal. When they cut the ad here, our mortality rate about 3 or 4%.
So 3 to 4% more babies are dying since the US cut aid?
Yes.
Wow.
Malnutrition has soared here. 9.5 million people are severely food insecure. Several NGOs previously funded by the US are now turning away many people in desperate need of food.
It's disturbing things to watch. And as we're doing the whole rah-rah USA thing and we're saving money and we're not going to hand that down to our kids and our grandkids that they've completely abandoned, that whole message. So as that continues to happen and we see the effects of these countries that, of course, we've been a big part of disrupting and destroying, as people are dying and as women die giving birth, the thing that we're not going to pay attention to is this, up until the fact that it's happening at a much broader scale here in this country. We already heard before about how certain women, American women, don't receive the same kind of care. People have less access to hospitals because of cuts. So this is an American problem too. It's just we haven't been seeing it enough. Like we never see things like this, but it's happening here too. Mortality rates for pregnant women, Black women, is always higher because we just don't care. There's this lack of humanity. And anytime anyone talked about humanity before, people would call them this crunchy granola lib who's too soft and doesn't know what real work is. All that nonsense that they like to say, it results in things like this because they needed to cut USAID funds so they can give rich people more money. It is the beginning and the end of literally every policy that they take part in. These guys are sorry ass leeches. They're thieves and they're running things, taking our money and giving it to other folks. And these are results. This next video is even worse. So there is even a trigger warning on this because there's a brand newborn child that suffers in this video and they highlight it more directly. So just, I'm going to give you guys that disclaimer on this one.
Keep breathing.
You need to seatbelt.
Hundreds of clinics across Afghanistan, including many in this province, have shut down in the last few months because of the USAID cuts. More and more women and children are traveling further and further distances to come here desperate for some form of help.
At this public hospital, the US was funding doctors, nurses, and essential drugs. But now that's all gone.
When they cut the ad here, our mortality rate about 3 or 4%.
This part was a better repeat.
3 to 4%
We'll get to
more
rise to
babies are dying since the US cut
yes.
Wow. What is his situation? What has the doctor said?
دكتورم خمدا داوي دغس أول خد جاكونا ودي أغنى دغس وي خكيدا ننسى مزغوطة مكروب جيكسي.
In the middle of speaking, we looked over and realized the child had stopped breathing.
Is he breathing? Is he breathing?
He needs to go.
He needs to go. Sorry, move. He died? Oh my God.
Mohammed's mother returns to the room, and the most devastating news.
This is just one family of so many thousands of families that are having to live through this, and it's utterly heart-wrenchingly devastating.
It's impossible to definitively blame one single factor for Mohammed's death. He was suffering from a range of serious illnesses. But aid cuts have dealt a devastating blow here. Cancelling aid to Afghanistan has long been a goal for Congressman Tim Burchett.
Hundreds of clinics across the country have now closed down. I literally watched a baby die from malnutrition. What would you say to these families who are living through desperate circumstances, devastated by the results of your actions?
I think it's horrific, but it's not due to my actions. Man, we don't have any more money. We're borrowing that money. And again,
But it is due to your actions. I mean, you have been advocating for this for the last couple of years.
No, ma'am, it's not our responsibility. We have Americans in the same position. We have Americans that are having trouble with childbirth. We have Americans going hungry, and you want us to borrow money and send it overseas.
Tim Burchett at the back end there. I'm going to get to him in a second. But as we watch that mother lose her child, and the overcrowding that's going on, the 3 to 4% increase in infants that are dying and mothers that are dying from a lack of access to any kind of normal hospital care, all that stuff, it's acceptable because we set into an emotion a long time ago that we don't care about human life. In this country, we've seen children get shot in schools for decades now, mass shootings all over the place. And our politicians who have the power, like that asshole Tim Burchett, who was talking at the back end there, after children were shot in his state, he said he's not going to do anything about it. He openly said it. I'm not going to do anything about it. If somebody wants to kill you, there's nothing we can do about it. So since we've set that in motion, why would they give a damn about these weird looking brown people in some other country that are dying, that we were a part of disrupting? Why? But then Tim Burchett thinks he's standing up for Americans there at the back end. How are we going to keep giving taxpayer dollars to all these other folks when we got people in this country which he's right about, that don't have access to hospitals, that are starving, that have no housing? But the policies that they keep putting in place do the same thing. The reason that we have hospitals that are disappearing, the reason that kids are going hungry, the reason that our education system is destroyed is because of these same policies that take money out of everything that makes those things work, gives it to rich people. They don't tell you that part, even though it's pretty damn obvious. What they'll tell you is we're going to give you $500 and be happy with that while we take all the rest of the money. So they're rating things. I know we're up at the top. I got more happening though. Sorry, you guys, there's more happening. But Tim Burchett just annoys the hell out of me. He's thinking about what's the future for our country. How about those billions of dollars that you just voted for to allow in that bill to continue to go to ICE, to increase the military force within our streets, to increase the guys who run up in people's houses and in their cars and in their work sites and destroy their lives? That's money that's not going to hospitals, to child care, to infants, to hunger, to education. They're cutting all of it to go to rich people. This is the effect. Just gonna let you guys know. This is the effect. And this is the way that they excuse it. Tammy Bruce is speaking about this. She was asked about these cuts and the devastating effects of them. Listen to the heartlessness. and the BS excuses.
Not take that, especially with a reduction in either participation or in spending when it comes to aid, don't take that as an indication of our withdrawal from the world or our participation. It's about a smarter, more strategic involvement that can be faster and more nimble, more effective around the world. We've mistaken, because of the size of government, this idea that how big you are, how many people are working, how many organizations you're going to is a reflection of success or effectiveness of results, when that is not the case. And this is what, as we do at home, is we look at how are we spending our money? Where are we spending our time? Is this something that is valuable for, and in our case, President Trump's vision of America first, but also for the best country in the world, a government that is still, as we are into our 250th birthday, that we want to be that country that people love and want to come to, that can make the difference in the world, that can actually not just help end wars by joining them, but can stop them from starting. That's the NATO vision. The NATO vision wasn't get
this lady off my screen. So do you see her talk about there? Where this needs to be an assessment of how we're spending our money. And if this money is best for Donald Trump's America First policy. Is the money best for Donald Trump's vision of America First? Donald Trump's vision of America First is people in this country suffering the same way that those folks are suffering. Donald Trump's vision of America First is taking away programs and access to help and information from folks who are suicidal. Donald Trump's vision of America First is destroying jobs and taxing us at higher rates through his tariffs. Donald Trump's America First is taking all your information and giving it to Elon Musk right before they have their fight. Everything Donald Trump does that's America First is Donald Trump first, because he thinks he's the only thing that's useful in this country, because he's a leech. He's a lifelong con man, failed businessman leech. So the times that people told you all that stuff when he was running for office, both times, it wasn't because, oh, we hate Donald Trump, even though we do. The reason is because it tells you how he's going to act once he's there. And these are the results of his actions now that he's there. You just have to identify it and recognize it. This is the result of that. We have to stop giving other people money. Apparently, they stopped giving us our own money. Programs that we pay for. I hate that they call it entitlements, because they make it seem like it's a negative thing. I'm entitled to that shit because I paid for it. You don't go to the store and buy $100 worth of groceries, and then the guy at the checkout register goes, I think I'm going to keep about 80% of these. Bro, I paid for that. I get to put that in my cart. And they call you lazy for not taking the things that you paid for. That's the way we operate here. There's so much more. And I keep coming to these side thoughts about this. But the way Tammy Bruce is talking about this and making sure that this is separate completely from what the reality of it is maddening. Here's more. So as they talk about how we're spending too much money, or we shouldn't be spending money there, here's an NBC News report about where we are spending money. Remember, they were talking about America First? See how much this has to do with America or First.
In Gaza City, children among those searching through the mountains of garbage, looking for food, scraps of plastic and burned paper, anything to help light a fire for cooking. Outside, the small soup kitchens still open, scenes like this. The 15 pots of lentil soup, not nearly enough for the massive crowds that come here.
In the last 3 days, we noticed that increase the number of the cases are coming to the reception room of severe malnutrition.
In the last 24 hours, 15 people, including 4 children, have died from malnutrition in Gaza, according to the Hamas-run Palestinian Ministry of Health.
We reached a critical point regarding the health situation, because now there is cutting of the road between the areas.
Israel's military expanding its operations yesterday to an area in central Gaza, where officials believe some of the remaining hostages taken during Hamas's October 7th attacks may be held. The IDF says 950 trucks worth of aid are in Gaza, waiting for distribution. But on Monday, a joint statement by 28 Western countries, including Canada and the UK, condemned what they described as the drip feeding of aid, calling the Israeli aid distribution model dangerous. According to the UN Human Rights Office, over 1,000 Palestinians have been killed by the Israeli military while trying to access food since late May, a number disputed by the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, an American aid group backed by Israel.
Now we are seeing the last gasp of a humanitarian system built on humanitarian principles. This system is being denied the conditions to function, denied the space to deliver, denied the safety to save lives.
That's our policies. The policy is not that we're gaining some kind of money from not continuing this. The policy is to hold up money that already went to this food, but doing the bidding of Benjamin Netanyahu and making sure that they continue to starve these folks, to continue down his genocide. It's turned to a slow burn as they're also murdering people instantly once they reach out and try and get these types of things. That's our policy. That's America first, to waste all that money, to burn these resources even, to get rid of all this food, because we can't let them believe that they're humans, even though they'll always know it. In our eyes, we have to act like they're subordinate to us. That's what white supremacy is. It continues in everything that they do to try and make it where they're a superior being, when in reality, they're just savage, violent individuals. If you think about what Trump said in this other story I talked to earlier, how much everyone's violent and vicious. He has to say that more because he's violent, because he's vicious with our money, and he's taking it right out of your wallet, bro. Want more excuses from Tammy Bruce? Here's more excuses from Tammy Bruce. Now, specifically on Gaza.
Progress is progressing towards a resolution. But on a more broader note, I mean, Judd, is it the department's assessment that the current, I guess, policy towards the conflict is working in drawing it to a close? Because when you see 79 people killed waiting for aid, which is one of the highest numbers we've seen over the course of the 2 years,
It's absolutely horrible.
it feels like things are going in the wrong direction.
Well, what it shows us here is that the enemy, the barbarian framework that started this on October 7th, with the mass murder of Jews, the biggest mass murder of Jews since the Holocaust, they are going to be upset and strike back when there appears to be the end to the kind of conflict, this never-ending generational conflict that some of the worst people in the world, state sponsor of terrorism, Iran, and their death squads, have relied on fear, have relied on indecision, have relied on people not wanting to face hard decisions. So of course they're going to act and cause more terror and more death in the hopes that people will retreat.
Did it sound like she answered that question? The question was asked about the 79 people that were directly and purposely murdered, seeking aid as their folks and their families are starving to death. And Tammy Bruce decided to talk about how it's Hamas and the state sponsors of terror, because they're the ones who are withholding aid. They're the ones that are targeting innocent folks looking for that aid. It doesn't ever make any sense. They just say things, and it's ironic. The projections off the charts. She said they rely on fear, indecision, and they have to make hard decisions. The terrorists rely on fear and indecision. What's all this fear and indecision that we've got going on in this country? How about that misinformation that you have about what's going on, and you dodging the question about who it is that's doing these things, about the people that are actually murdering folks, innocent people sitting there? That wasn't what the question was, but she found some way to try and spin it in case people who want to just listen to everything they say and take it as gospel will listen. Let me give you this last piece. As I pointed out, Donald Trump has a vision of America first, as they keep saying. That's why he cut all this aid. That's why people are dying at these rates. Let me tell you what he also thinks America first means when it comes to Gaza and their plans there. You guys may have seen these. He said it multiple times. I got a few of them compiled here. This is Donald Trump's America first policy when it comes to our policies in Gaza with Palestinian folks that we're murdering.
1.9 million people. We'll build beautiful communities, safe communities. Could be 5, 6, could be 2, but we'll build safe communities a little bit away from where they are, where all of this danger is. In the meantime, I would own this. Think of it as a real estate development for the future. It would be a beautiful piece of land.
Would the Palestinians
no
have the
big
right to
money
return?
spent. No, they wouldn't, because they're going to have much better housing, much better. In other words, I'm talking about building a permanent place for them. Because if they have to return now, it'll be years before you could ever. It's not habitable.
You know, Gaza is interesting. It's a phenomenal location on the sea, best weather. You know, everything's good. It's like some beautiful things could be done with it, but it's very interesting. But some fantastic things could be done with Gaza.
I'm committed to buying and owning Gaza. As far as us rebuilding it, we may give it to other states in the Middle East to build sections of it. Other people may do it through our auspices. But we're committed to owning it, taking it, and making sure that Hamas doesn't move back. There's nothing to move back into. The place is a demolition site. It'll be, the remainder will be demolished. Everything's demolished. I mean, you can't live in those buildings right now. They're very unsafe. But we'll make it into a very good site for future development by somebody. We'll let other countries develop parts of it. It'll be beautiful. People can come from all over the world and live there.
Yet people like him don't like terms like colonizers and occupiers and people that run up in other people's homes, like he just said he's doing. He wants to own it and make it some kind of real estate property. That's the plan from Donald Trump. Reasons why he's spending your money on killing all these folks and purposely making sure they don't get to the aid. This is all a part of the plan. Because, you know, they're the freedom folks. So anyways, I'm sorry for the depressing nature of that last story. It sometimes needs to be said. So as we see, you know, we talk about the golden era and the excellence of America and all that stuff. If you pay attention to the way other folks live and the effect that we have on their lives, you might begin to understand why they can't stand the things that we do. It's not about our freedoms. It's about our suppression of theirs, specifically their lives. Weird how that works. Thanks again, you guys. I know I went over forever. Probably a bunch of you guys jumped off. Check out John Nadarola and TDR, which I wouldn't blame you, but you know what? I had to get all this out. So for those of you that stayed, thank you again for being around. Go ahead and jump over to TDR and make sure they know, even though we're late, maybe in that first break, it was still a watch list party that you hung out for, the 5 of you that stayed around. Good to see you guys. Glad you were here. We'll be back on a Thursday. I'm going to try and find something not as depressing, but sometimes the stuff needs to be said. We'll see you guys. I'll let you roll. We'll see you tomorrow.